This is a short video to give you an overview about what to expect from the GCSE French listening exam. This is what it tells us in the AQA specification. Pretty obvious. What's assessed is that you can understand and you can respond to it. So you've got to be able to answer questions about different types of spoken language. So it'll be a range. And how is it assessed? You'll have an exam right at the end of the course. In the hall, you'll be there and you'll be writing your answers. Foundation tier 35 minutes and higher tier 45 minutes. As far as the marks go, it comes to 25% of the GCSE. So even though, for example, for the higher tier it's out of 50 and the other skills are out of 60, this will then be, the weighting will be changed so that it still carries the same weighting. For each of them, you'll first of all have 5 minutes when you're allowed to read through the question paper before they start playing the audio. Questions at both tiers. Section A will have questions in English and you'll be answering in English or non-verbally, so ticking off things which might have pictures. And section B, the questions will be written in French and you have to answer in French. And again, there may well be some ticking of boxes as well. Here's a bit more detail, and I've found some little pictures to demonstrate each little bit, so you might remember it. So you are going to be entered for either foundation or higher for all of the skills. You'll be in the same tier, whichever skill it is. 25% of the marks we know. We've talked about the number of marks and the time. So it'll be recorded in a studio, so you're not going to have to cope with lots of background noise. There'll be native speakers, but they are going to be speaking in a clear way, and it says near normal speed. Normal tends to be for French pretty fast, but normally they really do. They make it so that it's a little bit slower so that you'll be able to understand it. We'll be getting it at the same time as the question papers. This is important. Different types of spoken language will be used. So it'll be in the context you know, the themes that we know, and it'll be across a range of themes. You'll be given 5 minutes to read beforehand. As far as examples are concerned, you only get it where it's necessary to show you how a particular question should be answered. So you'll be hearing each one twice, so that's where it's a bit unnatural, because normally if you ask someone to repeat, they'd repeat as many times as you need to, but it's only twice, and they will say it obviously in exactly the same way. Pauses are built into the test, so the examiner doesn't have to pause it. This is important. You can make notes at any time during the test, so even while you're listening to it at the beginning, you might want to do that. And as you know, we can't have dictionaries. So these little symbols were meant to be the fact that the pace is normal. It'll be stuff you know about. You have 5 minutes reading time. It can be repeated just once, and you can make notes, and you're not allowed to have a dictionary. Here's an example of what it'll look like. So here's the first page where you just have to fill it in and it gives you all the instructions. It would be good if you've really got familiar with that so that that doesn't panic you when you read it. It always says the same. Section A then, the questions and answers will be in English. And they could either be multi-choice or open-ended. This is an example where it's multi-choice. You've just got to write a letter next to each of those. Now this may sound a bit obvious, but if you don't know, just put in any letter, but make sure it is one of those letters. The examiner said that they did have a few examples where people would put in a letter that wasn't there. Section B, the questions and answers are in French. Again, it could either be multi-choice or open-ended. There tend to be quite a lot of multi-choice ones in this section normally. So there, the context is given in French. The questions themselves are in French, but you are still writing a letter. Again, multi-choice, just guess if you don't know. Each year the exam board gives advice to teachers and indeed to students based on what they've seen has happened in the previous exam. So here's the exam advice that was given in January 2020. First of all, preparation. The advice that you should really make use of that 5 minutes that you've got to read through the listening exam in advance. And these are things that they saw people doing, which I thought that's a good idea, really. They suggest that you highlight things. So take a highlighter into the exam and perhaps highlight key words in the rubrics, in the instructions. Where it says that there are 2 parts to be answered, highlight that in advance so that you know you're looking for 2 bits. Signpost that section B where the answer has to be in the target language. When people are panicking in exam, they might forget this vital information. So using your highlighter, good idea. The other thing is to read the rubric introduction carefully. It's the bit where it's saying what the instructions are, what the context is, and that can help you to give sensible answers. During the test, this might seem really obvious, but listen carefully to the whole utterance. Don't base your answer just on the first thing you hear. The whole point of this exam often is to distinguish one candidate from another, and part of it will be deliberately putting in distractors to try and put you off, but you still know what the answer is. So be careful about that. The other thing, don't give up if you find a question difficult, because some are more accessible later on. So in the reading I talked about peaks and troughs. So something can be difficult and the next one will be not so difficult, and then it'll go up, be a bit more difficult, and then not so difficult, and so on. And it's deliberately done that way. Be aware that for the higher level, 2/3 of the test is aimed at someone getting a 6 or above. So if you've been targeted a 5 and you've decided that you still want to try the higher level, be aware that in fact only a third of the exam is actually targeted to that 5. So you can expect that 2/3 of it is going to be quite demanding. Answer every question. If in doubt, just have a guess. I've already given that example in multi-choice where people put down nothing or put down incorrect letters. So think about that. Make sure that you are giving the specific information required. And if you're asked to give one reason or one detail, only give one. Because if you think, oh, I'll make a chance on it, it's that and it could be that as well. If you put something else in, that will then negate the other one. You won't get anything at all.